Hi everyone, it's Andy from Hobby Headquarters, and today we're going to be building something modern. We're going to be doing the Academy 1/35 scale Merkava Mark IV. Let's get started on it. I've spent the last 35-40 minutes going ahead and cutting off all the road wheels and cleaning them up, getting them ready to build. When you go ahead and build it, the kit instructions tell you to put actually a poly cap inside here, and then you'll build it up like this, and that'll get the wheels to actually spin. I'm going to actually leave the poly cap out. I don't like the wheels to spin, especially when I'm going to be dry brushing later and putting scratches and stuff on. It has a tendency the wheel keeps spinning and you can never get the dry brush to work just the way you want it. So to each his own, but I'm going to leave those out. I will put them in on the drive sprockets and the return roller, and the reason that is, and that's just for getting the tracks on easier, but for the main road wheels we're just going to leave those off. Plus, we're going to try out a new glue today. This is new. We just got it in the store this week. It's Tamiya's new extra thin quick setting cement. It's supposed to be just like the regular green top one, the one I use all the time, but it will set up a little bit faster, which the way I build actually might even help out a little bit more. So let's get started on putting all these road wheels together. Okay, I got the wheels all set up and we're going to assembly line style them here. Try out the new glue out. Looks like it actually starts to dry very quickly. Drop that in there. And just to give you an idea, let's see, this one's already set up already, so the glue works really well. Nice solid bond. We'll let it dry a little bit more before we mess with it too much, but it'll give you an idea that it's going to set up pretty quickly. And I've cleaned them up pretty well, but anytime you see that little extra burr right there, we're going to go over and do some final sanding. I like to put them together and actually kill two birds with one stone, and so you can just sand it all at once. And as you can see, that outer road wheel is already completely set up. I can't even move it now. So it looks like the Tamiya glue works really, really well and very, very fast. I've gone ahead and, because it's all pretty basic and straightforward, I've attached all the springs and the lower suspension to it. One thing you're going to have to do now, because if you do decide not to put the poly caps in, you are going to have to obviously glue these into place. So applying a little glue all the way to the base, we're just going to go down the line and stick the road wheels right on there, making sure you put enough of them on so you don't lose them later on. And then we're going to do the exact same thing with the return rollers up on top. And just keep in mind there's some little return rollers which will go 1, 3, and 5, and then the big return rollers go 2 and 4. And they'll go right up inside there like that, which we can actually put in right now, since we're all ready for it. And we're going to go ahead, and then of course the return roller back here, that did have a poly cap on it, so that will just snap on, and the drive in the front will have one too, so that'll pop on as easily as well. We're now going to add the side skirts to the vehicle. Put a little glue on it right here and attach these two pieces. And each one of them has pins already to attach to the side. What we did here too is we put a little sheet of plastic because it should have something down there, but I noticed the kit did not. So we just put a little bit on there just so if you look down in there you'll see something. And we'll go ahead and start put a little glue inside that. And the other thing is too is we actually cut the little piece right off of that because it goes over that area. There's nothing for really to grab onto, so it kind of sticks out. So going forward, just kind of remember that. Let that part glue down. I did the bulk of the construction of adding the little parts on the turret. The kit overall is very, very nice. It's easy to put together. There's not an extreme amount of pieces to it. In fact, there's really only one real long page of instructions front and back. I also wanted to point out too the size of this vehicle. This is that Jeep I built just recently. You just look at the size in scale that one is. Now, I haven't actually glued any of these other pieces on. Now, the turret, of course, always just rolls off somehow here. And I haven't glued this on as well too, because what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to actually build the tracks and wrap those around. So don't want to glue this top piece onto the very, very end. So what we'll do is we'll work on the tracks, get those going, and then we're gonna spend more time in this video actually painting and weathering it, which really brings out, you know, the look of the vehicle, as opposed to too much time on the build, because the build was pretty straightforward and easy. It wasn't, like I said, a lot of parts. So let's start working on the tracks and we'll move on from there. I'll show you on the tracks now. The kit comes with Lincoln length tracks, and this piece right here is the top because it's the longest piece. It'll fit right over here, so it saves you quite a bit of work of having to glue together. Then there's another piece, long piece like that, that's going to be your bottom. Now what we'll do is we're going to talk about how to go ahead and make the curve part. What you want to do on that, I'm going to slide this out a little bit more so you can see a couple of the little pieces we've got here. We're going to go ahead and start gluing them up, and just putting just a little bit of glue on each one and getting them to start setting, because with this type of stuff you're going to want them to start to dry but not completely dry, because you're going to want to be able to wrap them around the entire drive sprocket. So as we do this part, you can work on actually a couple at a time and then glue the smaller pieces together. So get that one, and also keep in mind too the direction that the track's going to go, because this has the little outer edges right here, so that means it goes forward, just so when you're starting to put them on, don't put them on without checking with the rest of the track first, so you don't have any problems with that. Let's see, even in that time right there, the glue actually started to dry, so I'm gonna put a little bit more on there. Then we don't want to go too crazy on it because it will melt them quite a bit, and we want them to start setting up. And then with this part, you can brush a little bit in between those. And you're going to let that sit for a few minutes and start to set up. And actually, while that one's working, I'll do a couple more here. And the last little batch. This will make it that much easier to go around the drive sprocket. And one other thing I like to do is, once you got it like that and they're starting to set up, take the liquid cement and brush one coat across each side of it to make sure that you're bonding it really well. Now, because you've done that, we got to let that dry for a few seconds. So probably going to let it dry for like 30 to 45 seconds, and then we're going to pick it up and actually wrap it around the actual drive sprocket here. I'll be right back. Okay, that glue has had a little bit of a chance to dry now. You can see that the tracks are still somewhat flexible. We're going to put them over the drive sprocket, and you can just start to wrap them around, pushing them down into the teeth. Then when it gets over to this portion right here, you can turn the sprocket accordingly and get that to line up using a little bit of glue. Right down that. Make sure it's lined up, and you have the beginnings of the tracks. And I'm going to let this dry for a little bit longer, probably for about 5 or 10 minutes. Then we'll come back and actually do this lower portion as well. Okay, the best way to do this next part is just to flip the tank right all the way over and put a little bit of glue on either side of the other two pieces. And then we're just going to, as carefully as possible, drop that right in and right down into there too. And we'll let that dry a little bit and move on to the back. Okay, I've got the primary parts all assembled here. The tracks are on. I've also finished up all the little parts on the turret itself. So now we're going to go ahead and spray the entire thing with XF69 NATO Black, and this will give it a nice base coat for us to do our regular painting on top of. Okay, our next task is going to be to make up the Israeli greenish gray sand color. The way we're going to do that is we're going to mix 50% XF49 and we're going to mix 50% XF66. And I like to mix it up in a separate bottle, empty bottle that will start off here. I've come up with a color that I think I like pretty much. I added actually a touch more of the XF49, so it's probably 55-45%, and then we thin down a little bit. So now let's go ahead and put that paint on and see how it comes out. I'm very happy with the way the color came out, liked it a lot. I've also gone over and sprayed it with TS80 Tamiya Flat Clear. What that's going to do is that's sealed in all the paint so we can do some of the detailing on it as well. We're also going to go back over, these are actually supposed to be rubber and kind of a blackish, like a NATO black color, and we'll also touch up the wheels and the tracks and such. But as it stands right now, it's looking pretty good just the way it is. So let's get started on the next step. I put the decals on. There wasn't a lot, just a couple up front here and then the little triangle up front here as well. One other thing I'm going to do now is getting close to the end of painting is we're going to paint all of this. This is all supposed to be a black color because it's actually made out of rubber to match that. So let's go ahead and do that now. Okay, I've gone ahead and painted the rubber strip across the bottom here, as well as I've also charred up this little area because these use diesel engines on the Merkavas and they do belch a lot of smoke, and all the pictures that I've seen of them have quite a bit of smoke marks right in through here. The next step we're going to do now is we're going to take XF57 buff, and I thinned it down just a touch more than I probably normally would, and we're going to put it in the airbrush now, and we're going to just kind of like mist over the entire thing to kind of give it a dusty look, and that'll be the first coat we put on before we actually put on the pigments to really get it dusty. So we're going to just lightly start to go over it kind of in a circular pattern. Now, you probably don't notice a heck of a lot in the camera, or maybe you do, but what it started to do is it dust down all of the bottom area, and that's why earlier I wasn't too concerned about getting the black just perfectly, because you see how it starts to just create shadows and just blends together, and the rubber, because it is in the desert, is going to have that thin layer of dust on it as well. Now, you could go over it with a different color of a little bit of a darker brown to get some tone variations, but actually I'm just going to use the Desert Dust from Vallejo next, and we're going to put that on mostly on the lower areas, leaving the top pretty much just the way it is. Now, like I told you before, we're going to use the Vallejo pigments, the Desert Sand, or excuse me, Desert Dust, and we're going to start to put some up inside of all the wheels, the nooks and crannies, and the tracks. Not going to go too crazy with it, but just give it a nice little dust coat for the bottom. Okay, we finished it up here. I think it's looking really good. Academy made a really nice looking kit. Not a super abundance amount of parts, which is always nice, especially if you want to get to the painting and weathering. This part right here is the chain and ball armor in the back that prevents RPGs from hitting inside there. It's obviously very flat and two-dimensional. And I probably would, in future, probably change these out and use another one from like Black Dog or one of the other companies. But for the purposes of the video, just wanted to show it off. Academy actually wants you to cut off little pieces off the sprue, little half of the ball. So there'd be 2 halves for each one of these things. And that just seemed like an awful lot of work and very, very time consuming, and didn't really think I wanted to do it on that. Like I said, so in future, you might want to get an aftermarket kit if you really want to doll that up. I probably am going to put some tarps and some other bags in the back here, cover up part of it anyway, so you wouldn't even really notice it. The Academy kit is very, very nice. I would highly recommend this one. Now, their new one out is the LIC, or low intensity conflict, so they've changed a little bit of the parts on. Plus, Academy now gives you the anti-skid. They went and retooled and put anti-skid on all the upper surfaces, which the kit, or excuse me, the real vehicle should have in real life. But still looks good just the way it is. So I appreciate you watching, and stay tuned because we have more kits coming. Thank you.